Hey everyone, welcome to episode 121 of Tuesdays with Perry. Actually on Wednesday, a Wednesday edition of Tuesdays with Perry. Welcome. All right, so tonight we're going to be discussing with Perry the ongoing battle between the Attorney General Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino, the Deputy Director of the FBI. I think Epstein has something to do with that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk about the $100+ billion in the coffers of the United States thanks to Trump's trade and tariff policy. We're going to talk about the new Jewish conspiracy. I don't know what that is. I think that has something to do with Gaza. We're going to talk about Zoran Mamdani, or as I like to call him, Moron Zamdummy. He goes to Washington and they try to sell him to other Democrats there. And then we're going to talk about the Biden mental health inquiry going on by the House, was undertaken by the House Oversight Committee, where they interviewed the First Lady's Chief of Staff, Anthony Burnell, today, and he, had no surprises there. We're going to talk about that. Also, the testimony of Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, and Ashley Williams, who is the director of the Oval Office operations under Biden and still works in his presidential office as well. All right, let's see if we can't get Perry on the line. If I can get my shit together here.
Hello.
There he is. Hey, Perry, how are you doing tonight? Glad to hear you.
Doing marvelously.
Marvelously. How's marvelously? How is the weather down there in Alligator, Alcatrazville?
Well, it is. We had our typical late afternoon thunderstorms roll through today, but what we did not get is the relief from the oppressive seasonal humidity. It's about 95% humidity right now.
Wow.
I mean, you can almost see it. And, because of that, I've been forced to retreat. A little inside baseball here, folks. I have a modest home out here in the woods. I have 3 large dogs, 4 cats that are part of our family, so they live in our house. And that means a lot of chaos. So for me, I always have to go outside, which is why you guys always hear my ducks. But tonight, it is so oppressive that I was forced to retreat to my behemoth, turn on the engine, pump out as many hydrocarbons as I can to piss off the environmentalist wackos. And so here we are.
Here we are. I went down your list for the folks just so they know what's coming up. Why don't we start from the top? There's obviously a lot of kerfuffle going on around this Epstein list, which has caused a little bit of a rift between FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino and the Attorney General Pam Bondi. I know you wanted to talk about that. I know you're a fan of Bongino, and you must like Pam Bondi. She was your Attorney General in the state of Florida for some time.
Yeah, I love them both. They are, and you've kind of covered this on and off for the past 5 months, Rudy. You have said on multiple occasions that Patel and Bongino are over their head. I wouldn't use that terminology, but you're making an excellent point, and that has to do, and I said this on a prior show with you, the deep state has done a phenomenal job of covering their tracks. They had more than enough time to do it. They didn't have months. They had years. They knew. They could see the writing on the walls and how corrupt and chaotic the Biden administration was. They knew that he had selected Kamala Harris because she was dumber than him. And therefore, he didn't have to worry about being amended out of office. So the deep state saw all this. And by deep state, I'm talking about the dark forces within not just the intelligence agencies, but more importantly, the FBI and the NSA. And I am now convinced, and this is where you saying that the boys are in over their head. Kash Patel knew, and I said this either last week or the week before, Kash Patel knew where the bodies were buried. All he had to do is get the authority to go dig them up. And as I said, last week or the week before, the problem was when he got into office and got his spade shovel and started digging, there were no bodies there. And the problem that he and Bongino now have with Pam Bondi is that she has been teasing MAGA world for 5 fucking months about how she's got all this information and I remember her once saying, yes, I have the list. And when you make a statement like that, you better be making it based on what you know is factually accurate, especially if you're a trained officer of the court, not to mention the Attorney General of the United States of America. So when she made these claims, which are now appearing to be not only false, but foolish, she set the boys up to look even more incompetent than she is becoming with regard to the Epstein files. And although I am of the Trumpian mindset of, all right, you know what? It is what it is. We don't have what we need to move forward with this. The country needs to be saved. We need to move forward and leave this behind. And Trump was right to say it, but at the same time, this is becoming a much bigger problem. Of course, the lame brain media is not going to let this go because they think this could be the silver bullet they need. This is the silver bullet we need to kill the king. And therefore, it's going to continue. So we can either sidestep it, which is what Trump is trying to do, or we can address it the way I think it should be addressed. And that is, look, we thought we had the goods. We were wrong. Now, let's release, as Trump has said over the past week and a half, whatever can be released that has not been released by the Attorney General yet needs to be released. What we're going to have is, although we know there's a list, there isn't going to be a list released. And putting Giselle, or whatever
Ghislaine,
her name is, Ghislaine.
Jiz?
Max, putting her on the witness stand to tell her story ain't going to be what we want either.
No.
So,
Jiz,
you know what?
Ghislaine.
Yeah. So, what we need to do is get out as much of this as we can and then say, for the sake of the country, we need to move on. We can come back to this at a later date, but we have too much to do.
Yeah.
And now that only handles the political end of it. Now we got to deal with the personnel end. Now, I haven't seen these words roll off his lips, but he has been reported by multiple news sources, both conservative and liberal. So you have to say, if it's coming from both sides of the political pendulum of journalism, then it has to be true, which is he has said either she goes or I go. I can't work with her anymore. And this is the one problem I have with Bongino, is that he's a hot-headed Italian New York City cop, and sometimes his emotions get out in front of his brain, and he's a very smart guy. But sometimes he speaks with his emotions and not with his brain. And he put Patel in a corner now, because these two guys are blood brothers. So now Patel has said, if Dan goes, I go. So look at the position now that Trump is in. He has already come out and said, I love what the Attorney General is doing. She's doing a great job. Let her keep doing her job. Okay. Well, you have the deputy director of the FBI who is being quoted publicly all over the news media as saying, either she goes or I go. And yet you, Mr. President, when asked the question over the weekend, said, no, Dan's doing fine. But in the meantime, Dan has been AWOL from his desk at the FBI since Friday of last week. Now, I don't know if he was there today, but when this story was continued last night, everyone that was reporting on it said he hasn't been in his office.
Except for Benny Johnson. Benny
Johnson?
Yeah, Benny Johnson apparently said, I know Dan Bongino and he was there today. So, like, he's the only one that said that. So,
well,
what do you think is going to happen?
Be that as it may, the only way I see, because although I said to you in a text message that Bondi was in trouble, she's still in trouble. But if Trump says she's staying, she's staying. And that means he had to have a private one-on-one, face-to-face that we haven't heard about yet with Bongino. And I guarantee, because, you know, they're not friends, but they are good acquaintances. And I guarantee you, if that conversation's been had, and I think it has, it went like this. Dan, I respect you, and I respect your position on this matter. But we got to hold this team together. We have a country to save. And there is no bigger patriot of this country than you. I understand why you're upset. Now's not the time. I will not accept your letter of resignation. You are staying put. Now, when the President of the United States says that to you, doesn't matter who POTUS is. When the President says that to you and you are a true patriot, you stay at your job. And I think that is probably how this Michigash is going to taper off over the course of the next 1 to 2 weeks. I think they're just trying to play this out as a news cycle story, and hopefully that it goes away. I just don't see it going away because the Democrats and their minstrel shows in the media are not going to let it.
Right.
So they're going to have to do a better job.
Yeah, I think everybody knows, because it came clear to me. Everybody knows that something has been inserted into the Epstein files, probably
Correct.
by Comey or some of the FBI people in New York. So, and the Democrats have been told it's
just remember. I'm going to interrupt you because I want you to remind your audience, who is it that is the U.S. attorney for Lower New York?
Not any longer.
I didn't hear that story. When did this happen?
Breaking news about 5 minutes ago. Maureen Comey is out. She's been fired.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting?
By Pam Bondi. Yep, just broke right now. So you heard it here, folks. So
now, why did she? Why? No. Let's not let this go. Let's take this to the next logical step. Why was she fired? It wasn't because she lost the case with P. Diddy. No. It's not because Sean Combs got off on the racketeering charges, which they didn't have the evidence on him anyway. Okay, so it isn't because she didn't succeed at putting Combs away for the rest of his life. What's the reason? I mean, I don't know what it is. I can only assume, and let's not assume tonight.
Yeah.
But there's a reason there, and I'm wondering.
Well, everybody knows. Yeah, everybody knows she's a fixer for the deep state.
Mm-hmm.
So she's there to fix Epstein. She's there to fix Diddy. Don't forget my my idea, my speculation on Diddy is that the reason this whole investigation came down is because he wasn't willing to support Kamala. So
Correct.
If that's the case, all right, now you've been threatened. Now you see what we can do to you. And here comes Maureen Comey to give him a little slap on the wrist. And just like Epstein. And so we saw what's going to go on with that as well. So you are not one, it doesn't seem, that is dragging Trump through the mud over Epstein, because it seems like you know what is going on here.
Well, I can't say I know what's going on, but one thing the last 10 years have taught me about Donald Trump. Everything I thought I knew about him, meaning he was a bad boy, because he was a womanizer.
Yeah.
He was a bad boy. He was part of the billionaire boys club. And we all know that powerful, influential, wealthy people can get away literally with murder. I know the term literally is used way too often, but they can literally get away with murder, a la Hildebeest Clinton. And so, having said that, I thought all my adult life, he was one of them. Turns out, this son of a gun is a choir boy. And that is the reason why, when he found out how much of a deviant Epstein was, and I'm saying before he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. When he found out how much of a deviant Epstein was, he no longer wanted to have anything to do with him.
Yeah, it was that. It was the party at Epstein's, where the pool was full of young teenage girls, right?
Yep.
And from Roger Stone's book, we gleaned this, and that he immediately turned around and left when he realized they're not kids from the neighborhood. And then the final straw was when Epstein was trying to procure one of the masseuses at the spot, Mar-a-Lago, who happened to be the daughter of a good, wealthy friend of his, who was livid at the fact when his daughter told him this guy Epstein tried to recruit me to come be his private masseuse, and we know what that means. So,
correct.
I don't want to spend too much time on that, because I want to get through our list here. So let's go over to the great, beautiful news. No, Jerome Powell is still head of the Fed. It is the fact that we have topped $100 billion in tariff revenue in the first 6 months of the Trump administration. I know you want to talk about that, so
I do. It's one of those shows which is somewhat common where I like to crow, and so here it goes. I said to your audience last month that we were at that time we were at somewhere around $85 billion in tariff fees. And I said it was going to be more than double. I said we might even hit $200 billion in tariff fees by December 31. Now, of course, December 31 is not the end of the fiscal year, but for all intents and purposes of measuring during the calendar year what revenues are being raised and where those revenues are being raised, they're going to count up to December 31 how much in tax revenue this country has gained by way of tariffs. And I said I wouldn't be surprised if we exceed $200 billion, but I wasn't saying we were going to even get there. Well, lo and behold, Scott Bessent said, just 2 days ago, how we're now on track because, of course, the real tariffs have yet to even hit. They're going to start taking effect August 1st. They're predicting in excess of $300 billion. Now, $300 billion for the average Joe Schmo in this country, when you look at a government that is spending in excess of $6 trillion a year, you know, the average Joe Schmo says, well, that's a drop in the bucket. That's not the way to look at this. The way to look at this is that's $300 billion that didn't have to be taken from our wallets to run the government. That's number one. Number two, that money is then put into the Treasury. It lowers our deficit for the fiscal year. That also happened, another great thing that happened in the month of June. For the very first time in over 20 years, over 2 decades, our federal government ran at a surplus last month. That hasn't happened for over 20 years. Imagine what that's going to mean if we're successful at hopefully every month, but even if it's not every month of the year, now through next December 31, meaning after the election in 2026, if maybe 8 out of 12 calendar months we run a trade surplus, not a trade surplus, a tariff surplus for the budget, suddenly we don't have a $1.5, $1.6 trillion deficit that we have to figure out how we're going to finance, a la Federal Reserve notes, or Chinese investment by buying treasury notes. We don't have to worry about that or raising taxes ever again. This will make it possible for us to balance the federal budget. Maybe in this short, I know I'm sounding like pie in the sky here to your audience, Rudy, but it's possible that by the end of year 2, or certainly no later than the end of year 3 of this Trump term, we may be running a surplus every year. And what does that mean? That means not only is our government no longer borrowing money, what does that also mean? Because the government doesn't have to borrow money, it doesn't have to print money that has nothing backing it. Every Federal Reserve note that we hold in our hand is nothing more than a promissory note. It's a promise of the Federal Reserve, a la the federal government, that this dollar bill that I hold in my hand is good for all debts, public and private. It's a promise. There's nothing backing it.
Yeah.
Imagine what happens once the budget is balanced and we start paying down the debt. You think you have foreign investment pouring into our country right now? Trump just announced yesterday, we're over $16 trillion in investment, foreign capital pouring into this country. That's going to mean hundreds of thousands of new jobs we're not even counting on before AI takes over. But my point being is, imagine what that means for the economy. We don't have to increase taxes. Why is that? Because we have all this revenue coming from multiple streams. And so all of this that's going on, that's why I said a couple of weeks ago, it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
The only thing that can make it worse is the dark forces within the deep state dragging us into another war.
Right.
Because then all bets are off.
Right. Or
and of course, but let's not forget, we know there are too many bugs they have sitting on the shelf waiting to be released.
Right.
We know all about that.
Yeah, or 100 other things that they could decide to unleash on us. And we can see it all taking shape right now. So all we have to do is, I think, stay the course. And I think if people are out there, still ruminating about the Epstein list, we get it. But at this point here, it's really, we need to concentrate on getting the economy going. And if we're distracted with this thing, what we're doing is feeding the fire for the Democrats that are going to end up burning down Trump. All right, let's move on to the next bullet point here, which I don't know anything about this. You're talking about a new Jewish conspiracy? What's
Yeah.
Before you go on to that, what's the old Jewish conspiracy?
Well,
is it it's Kabbalah, isn't it? No, I don't know.
Well, that's a side note. Kabbalah is a side note. No. The Jews control the media. The Jews run the banks. That's what I mean by the new.
What's the new Jewish conspiracy then?
Well, the new Jewish conspiracy is, according to this guy Robbins, he is a journalist that wrote a book about the current war that's going on in Gaza, and he pulls no punches about what side he's on. And as a matter of fact, I while I was waiting for you to call me tonight, I reached out to my Israeli buddy, and I sent him a link to that particular episode of Redacted. And I wanted him to give me some info, because what little time I had to do research today on this guy Robbins and his book, I really couldn't find anything that could argue for or against what he was saying. And it concerned me. So anyway, my point being is, they had this guy on, and basically, he paints the picture that the Israelis are monsters, the Palestinians are innocent victims, and the latest in this victimhood is that the Israelis systematically mowed down all these young children who were sent by their parents to gather water. And the way they portrayed it was that these Israeli soldiers, it was like the My Lai massacre
in Vietnam, right?
In Vietnam, and the way the Israeli military reported it was a launched attack, whether it was a missile or a smart bomb, I don't know, but it missed its mark, they said, by 40 meters. And that's why these children were killed. And, they're claiming, meaning Robbins and Clayton's wife are claiming that the Israelis don't care. They haven't even apologized. They haven't given any information. Well, okay, you're a journalist. Why don't you do some work on your own? And so they're portraying the Israelis now. They're basically doing the dirty work for Hamas. And, my whole argument to people like her is, I've listened to you talk about Israel and about the Israeli people, and by extension, the Jewish people now for 6 months. And you really seem to struggle with the fact that Israel has not only the capability, but the will to do whatever it takes to win a war. Now, my problem, of course, is that they're not doing it fast enough. And the argument from Bibi and the military is, we're trying to minimize collateral damage, like what happened with these innocent children. And so my point of the new Jewish conspiracy is, we're murderers. We want to kill all the Palestinians. We're starving them. That's the other thing. She said that we are starving them to death. And that's funny, because I know as a fact, UN food trucks arrive every day. Now, I don't understand how we're starving them to death when we are allowing food trucks in. We're allowing medical supplies in. But it has to be at the encampments so that Hamas cannot get their hands on it to feed their militants. So, again, to wrap this up, the new Jewish conspiracy is that, we portray ourselves as victims, but yet we are the victimizers.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Well, I could see where that, the propaganda there is meant to be, because my whole thing behind October 7th is that it seemed to be contrived, with some in the IDF or some in the Israeli government to allow it to happen. Now, was it the Likudniks? Or my thing is, I think it was the left. And I think the left wanted to ruin Bibi forever because they knew he had this plan on the shelf, which was, if we get attacked again, we're going to go all out and get rid of Hamas permanent and Hezbollah, for all intents and purpose, permanently, which they're pretty much doing. But the people on the left thought that there'd be more public outcry globally, and you could see them festering on campuses in the United States and so forth and so on, which is going to bring us to our next topic, which is Zoran Mamdani, and we're going to get to that in just a second, but I'm just going to finish up by saying is that I think it was the idea all along, knowing what Bibi's plan was, is that to let him go through this plan with after October 7th happened, and that he would end up demonizing himself, but it turns out that plan wasn't very successful, and it turns out that the plan of the left hasn't been very successful. It doesn't matter what they do, whether it's trying to kill Trump or organizing this knucklehead in Minnesota.
New York.
No,
that one.
To Minnesota to go out and kill these Democrats and blame it on Trump, because now this guy apparently is saying, well, Tim Walsh sent me to do it. All right, but let's go to moron Zamdummy there in New York City. He went to Washington today, and it was kind of funny to see AOC out there trying to sell this guy. He didn't have many takers.
Well, I don't see as rosy a picture as you do, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because you have to look at it through the lens of where is the power right now in the Democrat Party.
Yep.
It's not with Schumer. It's not with Pelosi. It's not with Steny Hoyer. It's not even with Jeffries. He's now being threatened with being primaried. Okay? Who is it with? It's with the squad members.
Well, AOC specifically and
That's
Jasmine Crockett have raised the most money out of all the Democrats, of every single Democrat.
And what's so interesting is when you look at Jasmine's district, you know the money that she's raising isn't coming from that district.
Yeah.
So if you pay attention to where there is no longer a power structure in the Democrat Party, what few liberal, I would even say leftist Democrats are left they're all gray hairs.
Yeah.
Who's coming up now with regard to organization within the Democrat Party at the grassroots level? And the one thing everyone needs to understand about politics, whoever controls the grassroots element of your party will control the party. Doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't control the grassroots. Look at the Bush family. Do they have any say in what the Republican Party stands for anymore? No. You could say the same thing about the Clintons and the Obamas.
Yeah.
They got plenty of money behind them. Do they have any power anymore?
No.
They're being told, sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
Okay? So when you look at where the power lies within the Democrat Party now, they are all progressives. They are all communists. They want to control every aspect of life. And that's only going to benefit our party.
Yeah.
Okay? The more they continue to go down this road, and the other thing is, and I learned this, it's more than just a few years ago. You know, Glenn Beck does a superior job of teaching American history.
Yep.
And years ago, he did an expose on the American Nazi Party, which was very powerful.
The Bund
had a lot of street goons prior to World War II, and they were taking over the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Now they never succeeded. Okay, but my point being is that's where the AOCs and the Jasmine Crockett's are right now. So when you look at her bringing this nitwit trust fund baby to Washington, D.C. to have, you know, a come to Jesus moment with the party. Okay? Excuse the pun, yeah. I didn't realize that when I said it.
All right, it's good.
Come to Muhammad.
Yeah.
When she brought him there to show him off, it was a way of saying to the old guard, this is our future.
Yeah, we're here.
Our past.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here now.
Yeah.
And if he is successful at winning the election in November, and it used to be held in September in New York City. I don't know when they moved it to November, but they have. If he is successful, you know, everybody in media is saying, oh, it'll be the end of the Democrat Party. No, the Democrat Party no longer exists. The question is then going to be, how successful is the new Democrat Party, which is going to be socialist, Marxist, communist? How successful are they going to be at gaining power through my son's generation and the one that will be coming up 10 years from now behind my son's generation? He's at the very beginning of the Gen Zers. Okay, he's 27. You already have politicos talking about the alphas that are going to be coming up 10 years from now. So whoever controls these next two generations, politically speaking, will end up running the country.
Yeah.
And so that's who Mondani is looking to.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at who voted for him in the New York Democrat primary, it was all the Gen Zers and now New York City is a microcosm, okay?
Yeah.
You can't compare it to Gen Zers around the country. And I say that because you look at the great work that Charlie Kirk has done, okay? Having said all that, if you look at who makes up his grassroots, it's all Gen Zers. And it's going to be a lot of people from the Bronx. It's going to be a lot of people from Manhattan. And it's going to be a fair amount of people from Queens, Brooklyn. I mean, the only one, I've said this before, the only one I know, the only borough I know is going to go against him, and almost certainly going to go for Sliwa all the way, is Staten Island.
Staten Island, yeah. Yeah.
And so if he is successful at winning, the Democrats are going to look at that and say, okay, we have our marching orders. We're going hard left.
Yeah.
And so what does that spell for our party next year? It's going to be a sea of red.
Yeah.
So That's
Well,
how I see things going.
Well, that's what they're saying now is as the moderates, the moderate pundits and whatnot are saying, and even Republicans are saying, hey, moderate Democrats, come on over. It's time.
Right.
I'm a little more pessimistic at that view. I think that the Democratic Party, the DNC itself, will try to do what they always did and embrace Bernie Sanders, AOC, moron, embrace them. But when it comes down to national politics, they're going to say, Bernie, take a seat. And he will dutifully did so during several presidential elections. So whether he becomes...
Well, he wanted to hold on to those 3 mansions he now owns in Vermont.
Yeah, you can't go... We know what happens when you go up against the deep
That's
state,
right.
the DNC. P. Diddy knows it now, and there are plenty of people that know it. If you get their blessing, good, but you have to march to their tune, and they will probably welcome him and cheer him on. But when it comes to the DNC hierarchy, take a seat, keep your place, because...
Well, didn't they unelect David Hogg?
Yeah, well, exactly. They're not Democrats at all. They don't believe in the process.
Right.
But my point being is that the big donors, the corporatocracy, the people within the corporatocracy that donate to the Democratic Party, they're like, we don't mind fascism. We don't even mind Maoist, what is now Chinese-style communism. If you want to own, the state wants to own 51%, we're not happy with that. But it's not like you're nationalizing the whole thing. And that's what they're afraid of. That's what they were afraid of with Bernie Sanders or anybody on a national level going, we're not taking half the company or the controlling share. We're taking it all. And that's what they don't want, and that's what they're not pushing for. And don't forget, also you mentioned David Hogg, but don't forget your little buddy down there, the sock puppet, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who goes around measuring the temperature of light bulbs. She's still a congressperson, even though she was removed as director of the DNC because of exactly what happened with Bernie, and which was found out. She's still there. Nancy Pelosi might not be Speaker of the House, but she's still there. So there's still a cadre of old Democrats that are probably going to keep the hardline communists at bay for now. For now, I don't, because the Chinese influence, the academic influence, now the chatbot influence, the kids coming up today, they're all for it. They're all for taking the means of production, and so they don't know that.
That's my whole point.
Yeah, they don't know.
When you have some, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, they don't know what it means. Breadlines is what it's going to mean. They don't know what it means. But they will see soon enough if Mamdani takes over New York.
When you look at what he says with regard to the government owning the food stores, when you look at how he says
price controls, rent control,
right? We are going to freeze, and I said this to your audience within the last 3 weeks when Abe Beame was mayor of New York back in the early 70s after John Lindsay. He was the mayor who put rent control in place. He is the reason why, as I said before, you go down to Major Deegan, you can still see the results of Abe Beame putting rent control in place. And this guy, Mamdani, is going to do the same thing. And, it's like what we heard 33 years ago, the great sucking sound. It's going to be people of means, not just the wealthy, but people who have any assature of any kind. whether it's a co-op apartment or it's a luxury condo on the Upper West Side or Upper East Side, they are all going to jump on a bird and fly to Florida.
Yep.
Because if you're going to take what I have, I better take what I have now and get out of here.
Yep, absolutely.
And this is exactly, I was a little boy. I saw it happen to New York once. And if these people are foolish enough to listen to this nonsense and vote for it, well, they deserve what they get.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see if he gets elected, and when he does. The problem with him is that he's just a suit. He doesn't have any managerial or executive experience. I think he's going to crash and burn. I don't think he's going to be able to do much of anything. I think he's going to try, but I don't think, like many empty suits before him that get into politics, they go in with these promises and these dreams and this rainbows and unicorns thing, and I don't think he'll be able to even manage government. I mean, New York's a big fucking city. It's the biggest city in the United States. And he hasn't, Pete Buttigieg was mayor of a bigger city, had more executive experience than he does. So I think
we saw what how great a job Mayor Pete did.
Yeah. So I think he'll crash and burn at even attempting to govern because he hasn't governed shit. I mean, because you're a city councilman, so I don't think.
There is no, he's a state rep. And that's a part-time job in New York State.
Yeah.
He's never held a job.
Yeah. No.
I mean, at least Obama held a job in the private sector for 6 months. He hated it.
Yeah.
He said so in his book, how much he felt he was sleeping with the enemy.
Yeah. But he was a senator. Right. He was a senator before he became president. And that trains you up in politics for sure, because a senator is an executive position. So he's really going in to be the executive of the biggest city in America without any executive experience. I don't even know if he thinks he's going to know what to do. So
he's not going to need to. He's not going to need to know how to do anything, because
the machine,
just like Biden, he's going to have his staff around him that's going to do whatever needs to be done. He's going to sign off on whatever they tell him to sign off on.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to go.
Yeah. You're right. He'll have the machine behind him, which brings us to the next subject matter, which we're going to fly through here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So Biden's mental health and his governing, whether he was governing as the executive or not for the 4 years he was in office as president, is being investigated by the House Oversight Committee with Comer there at the head.
Mm-hmm.
And they interviewed Kevin O'Connor, Biden's doctor, who took the fifth every single time. They interviewed Ashley Williams, which was the director of Oval Office operations when Biden was president. She testified that she didn't know anything. So she didn't plead the fifth because she didn't have to plead the fifth. She just said she didn't know anything. So it looks like on again, off again. So off again now, we have Anthony Burnell, who was Jill Biden's chief of staff, the so-called work husband for Jill Biden. And he testified today. Also, he took the fifth every single time. So is there nothing to know, or is there something to know that they're just not willing to say to incriminate themselves or others?
Well, they don't have to say anything for us to know history. We lived it. We saw it. It wasn't just when he was standing on stage with Donaldus Magnus. Every time he was in front of a camera, people were worrying whether or not he was going to have a laundry problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So we, the American people, know we did not have a chief executive officer running our country for 4 years. We know that. Now, is Comer going to be able to get what evidence he needs to turn that over to the DOJ for a potential criminal investigation. We'll see. Right now, from what I can tell, I think there's 2 or 3 criminal investigations regarding the Biden administration going on right now, just based on what Comer's committee has found over the prior 2 years. So just like turning our country's economy around, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we already know. They can't look at us and say to us, don't believe your lying eyes. We know what we saw. Hell, Jill Biden is not part of the government. What was she doing sitting in the chair of the president conducting on his behalf
a cabinet meeting
at the end of his presidency?
Yeah.
She has no business being there except for a photo op with her loving arms around the shoulders of her husband. Yeah. Other than that, she has no reason to be there. How come the media never asked them that question?
Yeah.
Why were you conducting? Yeah. So that's why I'm saying, look.
Imagine Melania conducting.
Well, the problem everybody in the cabinet would have is trying to keep their eyes off of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Is not Jeffrey Epstein here, okay? This is a cover-up that's, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion, one layer at a time. They're going after the auto pen. That was part of what these committee hearings were about. And so we are going to get to the bottom of all of this. And it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Give them the time. But more importantly, this is history. And MAGA shouldn't focus on that. We need to focus on the future.
Yeah.
We need to stay focused on the future. Let them go ahead and do what they're doing. But I'm more concerned about what happens with our economy, what happens with world peace and maintaining it, ending this ridiculous war both in Ukraine and in Gaza, okay? Because once that war ends, the 800-pound gorilla has been slaughtered in the Middle East. And now, I believe, once the Gaza war ends and we start trying to pick up the pieces of the Palestinian people and really start putting their society back together for them, that's when you're going to see the second half of the Abraham Accords. I predict that's going to happen between year 2 and year 3 of Trump 2.0. Yeah. I see that coming.
I hope so, and I hope the thing in Ukraine, which scares me the most, I hope that gets settled and Putin comes to his senses. I went on a little diatribe this morning about that, pleading to Vladimir Putin there that you got everything that you were asking for, and you're not relenting. That's not what Trump had in mind. So I hope he comes to his senses in the next 50 days. And what I would really like to see is more uprooting of federal employees. The problem with me is the liberal establishment is entrenched in the bureaucracy everywhere. And these people have to be uprooted, whether it's Maureen Comey or the assholes at NPR that won't leave. There are people that have been fired, and they're like, we're not leaving, even after the judge says, you got to go. They're still showing up to board meetings, taking votes and stuff. I reported on that a little bit this morning as well. So I'd like to see these people rooted out, and so there is not an ability for the system, the establishment, to run the government with an empty suit. Because apparently Kamala Harris is the top poller for 2028. So they're hoping to get her in there, and she can smile and wave in her pantsuit, and the auto pen will be revved up again.
Well, look, you can wave that red flag in front of all of us, Rudy. But the closest that empty pantsuit is going to get to the Oval Office again in her natural lifetime is the governor's mansion in Sacramento, and she may not even get there.
Yeah, I don't think
and
so.
I'll tell you one of the reasons why is because Steve Hilton is running a phenomenal grassroots campaign. He is running under the radar. And if what he said during an interview over the weekend is true, he's the one who's really positioned to win this multi-candidate election. So the only reason why she polls high is because she's eye candy.
Well,
okay,
yeah, and this was a poll for Democrat voters.
That's my point.
Right.
That's my point.
And they don't know any better. Yeah, she got enough exposure during the election that everybody knows who she is now. Because most people couldn't name her a year ago, you know?
Right. And then you got Hair Club for Men, who's now trying to sound like an alpha male because every second, third sentence he's using a 4-letter word all of a sudden.
Yeah, he was on with Sean Ryan recently, yeah.
You know, so this is the best the Democrats can put up for potential run in 28. If that's the best they've got, Mondani would probably be a better candidate.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not worried about Kamala. I am concerned about Newsom because he is so smooth. I admire how he can massage a conversation. And, he could be a murderer standing in front of you with a bloody knife and the body at his feet. And he would look at you and say, "No, I just picked it up. I have no idea who did this."
Yeah.
And you would believe him.
Yeah.
And he's slick. He's that kind of snake oil salesman.
Yeah, he's slick and he's amicable. I mean, that's even with Trump. You know, he's supposed. You know, he talks a good game online, but when Trump comes to California, he's like, "Here's my buddy. Hey, buddy." You know, and he has that way about him. Sure. Yeah, he is a snake oil salesman. He's probably going to be the one. We'll see. I don't really think they have a chance because people are getting wise. I did an obit there for David Gergen, and just a brief note there. When I was working in media, I watched David Gergen talk at the Greenwich Hyatt, and he sounded a lot like Zbigniew Brzezinski. He talked about talked about a political awakening happening, and this was 10, 20 years ago. Political awakening is happening, and when it comes about, we have to nip it in the bud. He went on to say, as he talked to his wealthy friends, we have to nip it in the bud because if we don't, you know, all our, you know, machinations will come into the light, and everybody will know how to defeat us, or not vote for us or whatever, or not support the establishment, become populist, whatever. And that's exactly what's happening.
Correct. That's what MAGA is all about. That's what the Tea Party movement started 15 years ago. 15 years ago is when the Tea Party movement started. And you know, at that time, for those 6 years, okay, prior to Trump, or I should say actually 4 years, because in 2015, Trump picked up on that movement and carried it on his shoulders.
Right.
But for those first 5 years of the Tea Party movement, the reason why it was so effective, even with Obama trying to financially devastate it by you know, you couldn't get your 401 501c. It wasn't C3. I think it was C4, C5, which meant that you could use that money and not be taxed. It wasn't tax deductible because you are a political movement, but your money wouldn't be taxed from the revenues you gained from donations. And Lois Lerner, his little bitch in the IRS, put a stop to these organizations within the Tea Party movement from being able to raise revenue. It was not discombobulated, but it had no central single figure to pull everyone together. And that's why the Democrats couldn't kill it. That's why the media could not kill the Tea Party movement, because it was bona fide grassroots.
Yep.
And in 2015, Trump seized the opportunity to carry the movement, and it became MAGA.
Yeah.
And that's what we have today.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is what Gergen feared.
Yep. And it's not Trump's movement. He's a little bit of a megalomaniac. He thinks it's his movement, but he was drafted.
Let him think it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. He was drafted into the movement by General Flynn.
Right.
And he's carrying it all the way, and hopefully someone will take the torch when he's done. But he's not going to go away that easy, for sure. We got to end it there, Perry. So thanks for joining me tonight for episode 121 of Tuesdays with Perry. We'll talk next week, my friend.
Looking forward to it. We'll see if it's going to be 6 days or 7 days from now.
maybe 5 days, 6 days. Yeah, we'll see. Back on Tuesday.
All right, Rudy. It's always a joy. Thank you for putting a smile on my face tonight, and I look forward to us doing it again.
Cool. We'll talk next week.
That's a plan. Take care now.
See you.
Bye-bye.
There goes Perry, episode 121 of Tuesdays with Perry. Thanks for joining us tonight. Join us next week for episode 122, or join me every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m., live stream on Rumble. Rudy's Revelation. Peace out.